Climbers, I wish pain and suffering upon all of you. And I mean that in the very best way. Learn why I'm such an a-hole in today's episode.
It's going to be a long one.
Welcome to the Climb! This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. That's the name of the game, whether you like it or not. You got to bring the goods. Not talent, but business. Proof that your art has value, that your songwriting has value, that people want what you got, no matter how good you think it is. And it might be great, but if nobody wants it, then you don't have any leverage, right? Mm-hmm. That's the deal. So we called it the Climb, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. That's a backstream from a good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter, who teaches you the songwriter. This is what I love about him. First of all, he's a hit songwriter. He's got cuts his dang self from Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols. Got number ones in Southern Gospel. He's got top tens in Texas radio, top tens in Australian radio. He's global. He's a global brand, Brent Baxter. But what I love about Brent is he helps songwriters like you turn pro. That's what you want, right? He teaches you how to write like a pro, do business like a pro, and on the regular, and we were just talking about a mutual friend of ours who's going to help with this, that's a pro. He's going to introduce you to him. Mm-hmm. Here's a pro. Go impress him, and you get to do your thing, so to speak, right? You can find Brent very easily at songwritingpro.com.
Froze up.
I just said songwritingpro.com. He froze up.
Okay. And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. Yeah, a lot of big words there, but Johnny's got the big brain. If you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and who doesn't, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That's production singular, no S, and there is no S because there is no other Johnny D.
What's happening?
Pain and suffering. Pain and suffering. A pox on your house, Johnny. No.
Yes. May your armpits be infested by 1,000 fleas. No.
I had not heard that one before.
Listen, we're going to get to that. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but because we're all about love and light and positivity. Mm-hmm. But I promise you, we're not deviating from our course, but you're going to want to find out how the hell did I get there? Like, come to this conclusion, right? I think this is a good idea. So, but before we do that, let's take care of a little business. We want you to join the Climb community on Facebook. That's facebook.com/groups/the Climb community, or just search for the Climb community on Facebook. You have to ask to be let in, but we let everybody in as long as you look legit. And all you got to do is follow the rules to keep from getting roadhoused out. They're simple rules. I mean, we want you to brag about yourself as a comment on the post where everybody else does. When you're bragging about yourself, don't you want to be in a room where people are bragging about themselves? Like it's that kind of a thing, right? So just stay off the feed unless you got something for everybody. But every Thursday we have the gig alert. Every Monday we've got the new music post, and every Wednesday, which we like to share on the podcast, is the New Heights post, but we call it Wednesday Wins here on the show. That's right. And we love to shout out the wins of people. You know, when miracles happen, we want to hear about it. So let's have that.
Yes, that's right. So every Wednesday we have the New Heights post, is where we encourage you to celebrate together, share your wins. That way people know where it is. And I love watching the conversations that happen from some of these where people are hopping on and just having conversations, and that's where relationships are built. So this first one we have is from climber and former guest, Bill O'Hanlon. Bill says, I got a song that was pitched through Brent Baxter. That's right. He was at one of our, his song made it through one of our events into the top 10, got pitched around. He goes, so this song was pitched and recorded by an artist this week. The song is called Wasted Prayers. Yes. See? Connected to the pros. Wasted Prayers was co-written with hit songwriter Danny Myrick, She Country, and Hal Odell. Yep. We reissued the first use mechanical license and got an advance on mechanicals before recording. what? Have found
Come
that indie
on.
artists rarely follow up and pay mechanicals. It's true. So I like to get something upfront for me and my co-writers. So Bill, thank you for bringing the song. I think it was one of our maybe Pro Connect events, which actually at the time of this, by the time this drops, we have a Pro Connect event going on with Butch Baker. He's a hit veteran music publisher, and he's gonna be listening to your best country song because he's looking to find hits, baby, and get them cut. So what happened to Bill? That event was a little bit ago. We got another one going on now. You can get details at songwritingpro.com. But congratulations, Bill, and keep on climbing. Let's see. We got another one here. Let's
Yeah.
see what other one we
Talk
do.
to
But
me. Talk to me, boy.
super pumped
Good way to go, Bill, by the way. Love
for
that.
Bill.
Love that.
Yes. Let's see. Climber Billy Alford says last week the lady I'm playing with, Genevieve, hopefully I'm saying that right, played the after show for both Jelly Roll and Luke Bryan at the Houston Rodeo and Livestock show at Energy Stadium. We had 5 to 10,000 people listening at any given moment. So he got to get
Wow.
up. Billy got to rock it in front of like 5 to 10K. So that's very cool. So congratulations, Billy. Keep on climbing. That's
I
what I
love
got for
that.
today. There are more, but we don't have time for all the winners.
Well, all right. Well, let's just get into it here. Let's get down to business. So,
Which, by the way, if you want to connect with people that are playing in front of 10,000 people or getting cuts, you should join the Climb community and like hop on there and give, attaboys and attagirls.
I mean, 97% of all scientists agree that your career can be helped by listening to the Climb and being a part of the Climb community.
Yes, that's true. I've heard that. 98% of scientists agree that 45% of statistics are made up on the spot.
That's right. There you go. That's exactly right. So here's the thing, man. I saw a meme, and part of this show was kind of birthed from my favorite podcast. So I'm going to kind of go into this and unpack this a little bit. But 99%, here goes some more statistics for you. 99% of harm is caused in your head by you and your thoughts. 1% of harm is caused by reality and what actually happens in the outcome of that, right? Like what actually happens to you in the outcome. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, the problem isn't the problem. The way you think about the problem is the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always, sort of lived by a credo of you just don't need to manufacture drama, right? Life has that 1% when it happens, it's usually pretty stiff, it hurts. And life has plenty of drama in line for you, and that 1% can be very harsh. So we don't need to manufacture any of it, by living in the past, making up the future, those kinds of things.
Yeah, the Bible says, "Don't worry about tomorrow. Each day has enough trouble of its own."
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so I'm listening to my favorite podcast, which I've mentioned this a couple times in the pod, but it's really good, especially if you're into some of the things that I'm into. It's called the All In Podcast, and it's 4 billionaires that I believe. Well, I know a couple of them are self-made. A couple of them, other ones came from means, but they're billionaires. They didn't come from billionaire means, like they've made their fortunes, and in different areas, in tech and in finance and in biotech and things of that nature. They're all best friends. They all play poker together, which is why they call it the All In Podcast. So there's the connection to the name. But they're on different sides of the aisle politically, and this is one of the reasons why I like it, because I find it to be one of the only places that if you care about politics and you want honest, intelligent political discourse that doesn't devolve into angry shouts like you're racist or you're phobic or whatever kind of crap, like just, where they can disagree and agree to disagree, but they're going to talk about intelligently put the points across. If you're looking for the truth on both sides of the aisle about how people feel, this is a great podcast for that. I also get a lot of really good business insights and stuff I share with you guys on the pod. Tech insights. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff on TikTok about, on this pod right now. So there's good ways to get in there, and strategy stuff. So I listen to it, but they, the episode 170 of this podcast, which is, as we record this, it's It's the second to the most recent episode. They had a clip. They were kind of talking. This was in the context of woke versus anti woke, and how some of the corporations are beginning to move away from that. But what I gleaned from what I'm about to read you has nothing to do with woke or not woke. It has everything to do with positivity. And so they took a clip from a guy named Jensen Huang, who is the CEO of NVIDIA. And I don't expect you to know who NVIDIA is, but they're a very big company right now in the news. They make chips that power all this AI stuff. So it's like for stocks and investments and stuff, everybody's freaking out over NVIDIA. They're the golden child in Silicon Valley right now. Former customer of mine when I worked in the electronics industry. So I like this. But Jensen Huang is speaking at this to the Stanford Graduate School of Business. Okay. And here's what he says. This is interesting. He says, I think one of my greatest advantages is that I have very low expectations. And I mean that. Most of the Stanford graduates have very high expectations. And people with very high expectations have very low resilience. And unfortunately, resilience matters in success. I don't know how to teach it to you, except for I hope suffering happens to you. To this day, I use the word suffering and the phrase pain and suffering inside our company with great glee. Boy, this is going to cause a lot of pain and suffering, and I mean that in a happy way. Because he said, you want to train, you want to refine the character of your company. And by the way, artists, each of you artists, you are your own company. You have your own company. You want to refine the character of your company. You want greatness out of them. And greatness is not intelligence. It's greatness. Greatness comes from character. And character isn't formed out of smart people. It's formed out of people who suffered, right? So let that sink in, man, because it's about eating the failure, eating the suffering for breakfast. Like this is what's going to make you great. And understanding that while it stings, while it hurts, maybe it's tearing you apart, you know, this is, you're going to get through it. There's going to be tomorrow's another day. My mom used to always tell me, you know, and it's what you're going to do with it. It's how you're going to think about it. It's how you're going to process it. That's going to be the difference between success and not success, right? And Brent, how many times have we talked about this? What were the stats on failure? Like 50% of people quit after their first failure. I think it was 75% of people quit after the second failure, and 95% of people quit after the third failure.
Finally, I'm like a 1%er because I have failed so many times.
There you go. I mean, so resilience is the answer, right? Like if you stick around and you're resilient and you can get through it and you can build on that, a lot of things happen. First of all, you learn how to not make that mistake anymore.
Right.
The herd thins out, right? And you get to be a better student of the game, so you can really begin to understand the game starts to slow down for you, right? It's not happening so fast that you're getting pummeled 6 ways from Sunday. It starts to slow down and you're able to start to strategize, because now you're being able to play the game, and let's just say the game of life, you know, or in the music industry game at the real pace that it's happening at. And now all of a sudden you're making decisions that makes sense, right?
I mean, I think a good analogy is, you know, or athletes. Like, how do you get stronger? You tear the muscle down. Like, there's only pain. There's only gain through pain, right? I mean, that's an old saying, right? No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain. Yes.
That's what it comes down to. Like, if you're gonna build your body up, get faster, stronger, you know, once you pass puberty and some of that just comes naturally, right? I guess you just got an influx of testosterone. Congratulations, that's the last gift you're going to get. So now you got to work at it, right? You got to work to build those muscles, to build endurance, pain and suffering, man. How many people? Yeah, same thing. With guitar. I used to play more, and I don't really play much anymore. But like the fingers, you know, when you're building those calluses, pain and suffering, baby. Pain and suffering.
Yeah. True. Like you keep playing till your fingers bleed, until like Stevie Ray Vaughan used to super glue the calluses back on his fingers.
Right.
Like literally, to continue
I've
playing,
heard that.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's the kind of obsession, right? So you've heard me quote, one of my favorite David Lee Roth quotes is about the law of rock and roll, and I've said this a million times in the pod as well, but it's just so true. And it's so germane to today's subject. When
Mm.
I was young, I used to be really super wound up,
Mhm.
and it's because I had expectations about
Mhm.
the outcome of whatever I was doing at that moment, at that time. And this created, first of all, a boatload of stress for me,
Yeah.
especially, right? But also everyone around me,
Yeah.
a lot of stress. And I had expectations. And when those expectations weren't met, or
You
when the
you wanted to see
expectations,
the manager.
yeah,
When
yeah.
my
When the
expectations were not met, I needed to see the manager.
I want to speak to them. My name's Karen. Yeah.
Right.
When the expectations didn't have, what another great example, right? Like,
Right.
when the expectations didn't happen, when they weren't met, or when they didn't happen in the time frame that I imagined them in my head that they should happen, or when those expectations manifested themselves in the form of a step to the result as opposed
Mhm.
to delivering the result,
Yeah.
I got angry, distressed, uptight, depressed, disenchanted, disillusioned, whatever. This makes me difficult to work with in the real terms of a group, but difficult to work with in terms of myself. I'm difficult to
Mhm.
work with me, right? Like,
Yeah.
my frenetic, desperate, frantic energy would just ruin the creative vibe in the room, whether I'm the only
Mhm.
guy in the room or whether there's a team with me. And it wasn't until, like, I toured, uh,
Mhm.
at the club level, right, for a year straight, where you learn, like, you are living that, the Murphy's Law states that whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And the law of rock and roll states that Murphy completely underestimated the problem, right?
Yeah.
So you live the fact that Murphy completely underestimated the problem,
Mhm.
AKA you live the law of rock and roll, and you have to learn to let go of things you can't control and react in manners that, in ways that you can control.
Mhm.
We all like to think about a show at a venue that's really important to us to go prior to the show as smoothly as it can possibly go, right? Like plenty
Mhm.
of time, sound check, and get your shower, and get everything dialed in, guitars tuned up, everything's just exactly where it needs to be, so you feel confident walking out on that stage. Well,
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times it didn't happen.
Right.
For
Yeah.
one reason or another, where literally we're showing up. We've got a freaking road crew, but the whole band, it's all hands on deck, unloading the 24-foot rider truck because we're late. We're really late
Yeah.
through no fault of our own, but we're late. And the club doesn't care,
Yeah.
right? Like, what the reason is. It's like,
No.
yeah, and we can't afford to get docked. So we're throwing the PA system up. We're throwing the wires together, throwing the lights up, and then we're throwing our gear up on stage. And then we're running up, throwing in some clothes. They're going to do a sound check on the fly in the first three songs, and we're off and running. And it's
Yeah.
stress city, man. You know what I mean? Like, it sucks. Nobody wants that. But guess what? That's what happens. And you learn to just, instead of, are you going to be pissed off about it that whole show, right?
Right.
And that's going to affect your show, or are you just going to let it go, get over on it, and just everybody does their job, and we pull off a great show? I think of a story that I've had a number of my friends that have been on the Tim McGraw tour over the years. Some of them
Mhm.
still are, and um, him and Faith have a really, great relationship. And when he was out on the Brothers of the Sun tour with Kenny Chesney, they were co-headlining, right? Which just right off the bat creates issues. And you can
Mhm.
say that they're ego issues, and we all have an ego, so it's absolutely true that a part of that is in there. But it's branding issues, and they're so, both Kenny and uh, uh, Tim McGraw
Mhm.
and their teams are extremely proficient and intelligent and well versed in branding, and when things don't go right, it's misbranding, and they can't have that. They didn't
Yeah.
get there by accident. And somebody's Kenny's stuff was higher than his stuff on this particular thing or whatever, and Tim McGraw, the manager, was there, and he brought the manager out on stage and just lambasted him in front of 40,000 people in a stadium. And he was pissed. He was pissed off, and he had every right to be pissed off, right? But over the comms, because Faith was there too, comes Faith from backstage. Nobody in the audience can hear what's going on, but in the comms inside, in the monitors, everybody's got the in-ears, and she's like, "Hey, cut this crap out. All these people paid a boatload of money to see you right now. What do you want them to see?
Yeah.
Do you want them to see this? Do you throw a tantrum, or do you want them to leave going, he's still the greatest artist I've ever seen? Like, I love him." And you know what? She dropped that anvil right on top of his head over the monitors, and he straightened right up. He straightened right up and put on a great show. So it's how you deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So, Michael Jordan's secret, right? The biggest quote he ever had, "Man, I let the game come to me."
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it through that lens, right? When you've had enough pain and suffering that you're not afraid of pain and suffering, you don't welcome it. I don't want it,
Mm-hmm.
but I know this isn't going to kill me, right?
Yeah.
I know this isn't. Remember your first broken heart?
Oh, let's think about the first love is that you don't know it could ever end.
Yeah. And you don't know that it's not going to kill you when it ends, because it sure as hell feels like the end of the world,
It does, yeah.
And there's nothing anybody can do except say, "This is not going to kill you. I promise you, you're going to be okay."
Yeah.
You just got to breathe and get through it. And sometimes, for me, that's a coping mechanism for me. There are some days when all I can do is just focus on breathing.
Yeah.
I can't be productive anywhere else. I just got to focus on breathing, because otherwise I'm not going to get through it, and we all have our coping methods. But when you have enough pain and suffering to know that it's not going to kill you, right? You learn how to let the game come to you. And what happens when the game comes to you is now you're reacting to real information, right? Just something that's really happening with a calm. You're not panicked. You're not stressed out. You're not frenetic. You're not like I was when I was younger, and you're just like, okay, here's the facts, right? This happened. I know this is true. You're taking an inventory of the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I know for certain. Here's what I'm not sure of. And then you start to make decisions that are really super strategic and beneficial to you. You're not sticking your foot in your mouth. You're not burning bridges based on maybe how you could have been led to feel at a certain time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how many times, Brent, have something happened to you when you think one thing, it made you feel a certain way? Maybe it felt dirty,
Yeah.
It felt underhanded. It felt like a betrayal, maybe. And then you come to find out later, and you wanted to tear somebody's head off, but you didn't because you weren't sure.
Yeah.
And
Then
you found out you were wrong.
Turns out there's a perfectly innocent explanation for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or maybe it wasn't that person, it was somebody else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're not betraying the person that you thought betrayed you by claiming that they betrayed you, right? That's not good for a relationship. So it's, when you have enough pain and suffering, then you get used to chaos. You in life, it's chaos. No matter how you stack it, it's chaos. And we all have different ways of dealing with it. But certainly resilience is not just, it just doesn't, to me, it just doesn't matter in success. I think it's like everything, because if you somehow get successful and you're not resilient, so like you win a lottery ticket, you're
that's
not
a
going to
lottery
be
ticket
successful for long.
You'll have a moment.
Yeah.
Then you'll have a
15
memory.
minutes and it'll be over. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Well, when you were talking about this, if I could jump in real quick, when you first
yeah.
brought this up, that reminded me of this Bible verse from Romans. It says, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame. That's from Romans chapter 5, verse 3 through like 4.
Yeah.
But that's it, man. Suffering, perseverance, character, hope. And that's true,
Yeah.
it's in all areas, right? I mean, that's.
When we talk about this, then some people call it like tough love,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like this is going to suck. You're going to have to
Yeah.
go fail. You're going to have, like, it sounds icky. It sounds bad. And I think everybody on the planet right now that wants any kind of power or vote, no matter what side of the aisle they're sitting on, is selling the fairy tale,
Yeah.
like
I'll fix
no
it for
pain
you.
and suffering. Yeah, no, none of this, none of that. Well, man, that's just not reality. That's not going to create anything good. That's not going to create greatness.
Mhm. I mean, I
It's
think
not. Go
as
ahead.
as a songwriter, man, I remember back to this one, you know, hold that I had on an artist, and it was getting really close to a cut. It was a cut that would have meant a lot to me just because I didn't have many at that point, and my co-writers were like old buddies and like some of my OGs. And then when we lost the cut, because
Yeah.
somebody on the team nixed it, that just broke my heart for so many reasons. And like those first holds, you hold on to those holds so much, and then they
Yep.
don't happen. And most of the time they don't happen.
Yeah.
And after a while, I just like, the first one, you're buying a car in your mind, by the 50th one, you're just like, all right, well, moving on, write another song today. It's that
Yeah.
resiliency. And if like we lose it, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to go write a song today. That's it. It's the process. It's part of the game. Moving on.
Yep.
And it's like,
Perspective.
it's perspective. I've been doing it long enough that I can see like, oh, this is a part of it. All right.
Yep.
So you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. What am I going to do
Yep.
tomorrow? Same thing I would do either way. I'm going to go write a song. I'm going to go make connections. I'm going to do the deal.
Yeah. So, let's go down that rabbit hole for a second. So I think
Mhm.
about, the amateur songwriters that are out there, who you got to give them credit. They had the balls to write 3 songs,
Yeah.
to be creative on 3 songs. That's the first 3. Those are the bitch of the bunch right there. That's really
They
hard
are.
to
Yeah.
do. You know what I mean? That's really hard to do it. And but when they come from the angle of, I'm just gonna see if these things do anything first before I go forward, it's a protection racket on pain and suffering, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
it's like, no, they're probably gonna suck, and they're probably, when you think about all the songwriters that you love that made you want to even consider
Mhm.
writing these first 3 songs, they'll all tell you, like Tony Lane, well, you got to write 1,500 to get a hit. That's going to make you some money.
Yeah.
Wow,
Oh,
you're
okay.
3 in.
Congratulations.
What's that percentage? You got a lot of work to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you're just like, all right, let's just keep going, let's keep going, let's keep going, then all of a sudden it's not about the result.
Mhm.
If you have low expectations, it's not about the results, about the craft,
It
isn't it?
reminds me of that old I think it was Saturday Night Live skit, Lowered Expectations. It was like a dating service for people that,
Yeah.
well, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Well,
But the expectations of the outcome,
Mhm.
of each individual thing. I know that. I know when I talk to somebody as an artist or a writer, like what pile they belong in.
Mhm.
Just after a quick conversation with them, oh, this
Yeah.
person here is interested in the craft of it. This person here is an artist because they can't do anything else. Not because they don't have the talent to do anything else.
Mhm.
They just don't have the constitution. Like, if they're not doing this, what they're doing right now, they're going to be on the 6 o'clock news, climbing
Yeah.
a tower with a gun.
Yeah.
That was me. I mean, I was like, there's only one way. We're storming the island. We're going to burn the ships. And my whole band was of the same mindset,
Mhm.
like, yes, this is what we're doing. Nobody went into it half-heartedly. Nobody. And we got far, we got
Yeah.
far. And it was the resilience over, you could definitely say talent. We weren't the best band in town. But we were more resilient than everybody else,
Yeah,
So,
man.
and the longer you're in the game, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you get,
I
right?
heard this great thing. It's tragic. It was heartbreaking, but about POWs. like this guy that was POW and like Vietnam or something. And he's like, the guys that didn't make it were the ones that were like, any day now we're gonna hear those choppers. Any day now we're gonna get
Yep.
out. Any day now, because they didn't
Yeah.
last. The guys that lasted were the ones like, okay, we're in the crap. This is it.
Yep.
Buckle
For the
up.
foreseeable future, this is what goes
Yeah,
on.
this is it.
Now, how are we going to react to this? Like, how are we going to deal with this? Like,
Yeah.
because of the expectation. Yeah, I mean, that's a survival skill right there, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like, literally a survival skill. And I think about that. Okay, let's talk about that because I look, there's some societal stuff in here, but I mean this for your career, right? Like, how to deal with the failure, how to deal with the haters, how to deal with the rejection, how to deal with the people who get over on you. I had an email from a recent climber that was talking about how she spent a whole bunch of money on BS, on people that were selling false crap and stuff like that, trying to get ahead. And my answer to her in the email was, you know what? First of all, I hate that happened to you, number one. Number two, I hate that these people exist. They're bottom feeders out there who do nothing but capitalize on the newbies that come into the business. But here's the reality. We call it an idiot tax. Don't feel bad about it. You know what I mean? Because I've had to pay it. You just paid it. Everybody's paid it. Mm-hmm. And the only way out is through. Like, you have to pay the idiot tax first to learn that it's an idiot tax. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it seems like the rainbow with the sun, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Oh, I'm going to roll into Nashville and get a deal by the end of June. It's like, no. That's not what's going to happen. But when you talk about back to the POWs and when you go through intense trauma, when you go through suffering like that, man, all of a sudden, some of life's hurdles that come after that seem like a pain in the ass, but it's just another hurdle that you got to get over, right?
Yeah.
It's not stuck in a POW camp. I don't have cancer. I don't have, you know what I mean? I don't have I don't have this other stuff. And think about how some of the generations that is an observation I had of people who've been through that kind of, been through a war, been through Vietnam, been through POW camps, and then move on to Twitter today where, words are violence.
Right. It's like, no, man, bullets are violence. I've been through bullets. Bullets been through me.
Violence. Right. Yeah. It's just like, okay, so I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast and he was kind of going down this road a little bit. And he was like, if nothing's ever happened to you in your whole life, if you had no pain and suffering in your whole life and you get a flat tire and you're like, holy crap, that can be overwhelming, right? You can have a meltdown. You can fall apart. Like, you don't know how that's going to end. Like, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But if you had a lot of crap happen to you over your life and you get a flat tire, you're like, well, this blows. I'm going to have to change this tire right now.
Exactly.
In your ass, but you go and you change the tire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, but it's not this overwhelming thing.
Yeah.
So
when people cancel on a co-write, when a cut doesn't come through, when the record never comes out, it was like, I've been there, done that. All right.
Yeah.
I expect this sort of thing to happen. I didn't expect it on that particular one, but I expect these things to happen. And what am I going to do? Well, does it change what I do today? Nah.
Yeah.
Didn't change what I do.
We went last night, Janelle and I went to the listening room for this great round. It was a friend of the show, Jamie Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
It was Matt Bloyd, who I don't know if you ever heard of him, but Bloyd, Matt Bloyd, like, this guy's got a voice like oh my God, okay, super incredible artist. Pia Toscano was on it. Dude, she tours with freaking Andrew Bocelli, like ridiculous. Okay. And then this girl who had the biggest part of the crowd there, Alexandra Kay is her name. And she just recently blew up now. I was looking her up. I had no idea who she was before we went there. And I'm looking at her Spotify. She's up to 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify as an indie. 2 failed record deals and got divorced after I don't know how many years. And this record that's out now is basically her putting herself back together from that divorce. And one of the stories that she told was she had a co-write And she's like, this is probably my favorite song on the record, because the day that I had this co-write, I just was dealing with huge depression. I couldn't get out of bed. I was sick. And I was just like, man, I just couldn't get it together. But I knew I had to do this co-write. Like, I can't not do the co-write. That's bad, you know?
Yeah.
Like you said.
Professional.
You know?
That's what
Yeah.
professionals do. Play
Yeah,
hurt.
exactly. Unprofessional. So she called the person she was writing with, would you mind coming over to the house? And she goes, I'm dealing with all this stuff. And they said, yeah. And she goes, for the first hour, we just talked. And and then finally her friend was like, her co-writer was like, tell me this, like, I'd really just get me clear on, when was the moment that you knew that it was over, that you had to leave, you know? And then the song was born, you know? And this is the song that, as we speak, is just rocketing up on the highway right now. It's like, she's doing great, but still indie. I mean, she had 2 record deals, lost both of them.
Yeah.
Pain and suffering with this guy that just didn't see her for who she was, and took her for granted and all this stuff. Pain and suffering.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what do we have, ladies and gentlemen? Greatness. We have greatness, So I look at it through this lens, and I think of how many people try to force it, because of their high expectations. That leads to force. You're trying to force it, right?
Oh man, I have. There's a high expectations. So one of my kids would have huge expectations of maybe a party, or like a Halloween party that we would do, or some birthday party, and it was going to be all these grand ambitions that never work out that way and would be crushed.
Yeah.
And so thankfully he seems to be past this now, but when he was younger, can't enjoy the good that was there, letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. Like, I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted it to be, and it's only like, it could have been really good, except for the attitude and the expectations.
Yeah.
It's that disappointment is like, I had an appointment right in my mind, this future thing, and now I'm disappointed. That appointment didn't happen with whatever that is.
Yes.
The thing I want to happen is, it fell through. Now I'm disappointed. And so there's that thing of, I think not that you even so much have, part of it, I guess, low expectations, but I'd say realistic expectations of, there's going to be bumps on the way. There's going to be people going to punch me in the face. You go out to play a game. You know what? The other team's going to go on a run too. They talk about basketball. It's a game of like 3 runs. We got to control 2 of them, because the other team's going to go on a run too. Why? Because they're on scholarship too, or they get paid too. It's going to happen.
Yep.
So
how are we going to react to it?
How are we going to react when it happens?
Yeah,
because it will.
And I mean, sometimes the greatest things can happen like immediately after a huge disappointment. Yeah, I can think of a time when we were doing the artist thing down in Florida, and we had there was this huge, I can't remember the name of it's some festival. It happened every year. It's right on the beach. At the time, this band called Stranger used to be on Epic Records, was the local band, and we were friends with them, and they had this big, huge stage. There's going to be like 8,000 people there, 5,000 to 8,000 people, a big deal. And we were on the bill to play that show, right? At the time, it was going to be the biggest show that we had done so far, man. We were just stoked. And when Stranger got, and so it was a weird thing, it was like I don't know if it wasn't like a Rock the Vote thing, but it was something where it happened like in the morning. So like the headliner went on first, and then the rest of the bands were supposed to go on,
Okay.
And there was some kind of miscommunication or whatever, but after the headliner Stranger got done, they started tearing down the stage, and everybody was pissed. I mean, you got like 5,000 people pissed off, right?
Yeah.
And certainly we're like all dressed up and nowhere to go. You know what I mean? We're ready
all dressed up and nowhere to show, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and nowhere to show. And so there was all these people there, and everybody's just bent. You know what I mean? They wanted to see more bands, and they were expecting this thing, but there was just some kind of major F up. And we just said, well, we came here to play. It ain't going to be on the stage. We just sat down on the beach, brought out the guitars, and started singing. Next thing you know, there's 1,000 people around us on the beach. You know what I mean? And right there in the moment, just because we had to do something, like we just wanted to play, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so were we disappointed? Hell yeah. But we were like, do we have another angle? Hell no. Just like, we're going to play, let's just do it. Like, hell, almost out of defiance. Well, they can't tell me I can't play. I'm playing.
Roll, baby. Rock and
right
roll.
here. Yeah. So all I remember is we sat down. We probably played for maybe an hour, hour and a half, and we had a gig that night. And I remember getting woken up, phone call from the management, like at 6 o'clock in the morning. Johnny, turn on the radio, turn on the radio. Like they're talking about you on the radio, you know? And I was like, what? You know? And so they're, sure enough, they're like, the DJs are tearing apart the coordinators of this festival thing, right? For just tearing the flesh from bone. Like this is
Yeah.
just ridiculous. There's all these people, none of the other bands played. They just got screwed. And then people started calling in. Well, that's not true. Kid Gypsy played. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, Kid Gypsy played. Oh, yeah. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of people started calling in because they were there. And they saw it. Next thing you know, I'm on the phone talking about it. And we're getting like a huge amount of press from a huge disappointment, because we just reacted to it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't complaints, it wasn't a lack of expectation. And I need to talk to the manager. It was like, well, if we came here to play, let's play. Like,
You started looking. You started asking the question that we ask a lot in this show, hat tip to Michael Hyatt. What does this make possible? You're not looking at like, I guess it's all impossible. Oh, it's all impossible. No, maybe the thing that your option A, plan A, is no longer possible. But a lot of times when you don't have that resilience, we forget the rest of the alphabet.
Yeah.
We're so busy looking at the closed door that we don't see the open window. You guys have been through it enough to go, well, all right. Well, this sucks. I mean, it's not plan A, but what does this make possible? Hey, there's a beach over there and we got gear and we know how to do this. Let's go do the thing. And
Yeah.
get stuff happen.
And we did that again. I think it's probably, if I'm being honest, intellectually honest, it was more out of defiance. Like, F everybody, we're playing right here anyway. It just won't be on the stage,
Yeah.
But that was the attitude. But I think you made me think of something else here, Brent. Is that people are always watching.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
People are watching, and like Mike Tyson has a famous quote, right? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yes.
Then your plan goes right out the window, right? So translation, everybody has a plan until they endure some pain and suffering, and then they start to bail out, okay? Mm-hmm. I remember, so who's watching, right? In this case, all those people that were around us were watching and then went to bat for us on the radio the next day. In the world, like from the opposite side of the artist thing, when Janelle introduced me to the idea of working with Josh Roy, my first step was, fly him to Nashville, and him and his manager flew up from Phoenix where they live, and we wanted to meet face to face. It sounds like the right thing to do, but I had, an ulterior motive. Like I'm gonna inflict some possible pain and suffering, right, on Josh. So I took him to TJ's Music Girl Freak Show.
Yeah.
Because I wanted him to see some real writers, because he was doing really, really well down in Phoenix, and he's worshiped down in Phoenix, but the level down there.
And you're like, that's a nice lake. Let me drop you in the ocean for a minute.
Yeah, that's cute. That's a cute little pond. Yeah. Here's who you're really competing against. Let's see what you think about this. And then I also took them to a recording session so they could see what happened there, because they had their experience was completely different than what happens professionally here in Nashville. And the whole point was, I want to see him react. Is he going to fold like a cheap suit? Is he just going to go back and say, I like it better being a big fish in a small pond? Or is our eyes going to light up and he's going to be like, oh, this is where the bar is.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll go, I can do that. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, and here's the thing, like, again, back to pain and suffering, right? Is he going to soak it in? Is he going to realize that the bar is higher than his expectations, his original expectations, and his experiences, right? Is he going to be able to adapt and rise through to the occasion and walk through this door to the next level? And here's the deal. When you walk through a door like that, it means pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Because he's the king in Arizona, but up here in Nashville, he's a puppy with a lot of talent and a lot to learn. But that's it. Yeah. And if he walks through that door, he's going to be knocked down. He's not at the top of the totem pole. He's at the bottom of the totem pole. Yeah. And that hurts. I don't care who you are, So
I got a couple quotes. I think you're about to finish up, but a lot of this reminds me
throw it in.
of stoicism. So it's a kind of philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, all
Mhm.
that like old school stuff, right? And so it maybe look up some while you're talking. And so here's a quote from Epictetus. I don't know how to say his name, but anyway, but it was a good quote, so I'll make myself look stupid. It says, "Suffering arises from trying to control what is uncontrollable, or from neglecting what is within our power." So suffering comes from trying to control what we can't, or from not controlling what we can. Yeah,
And when you're trying to control what you can't, I'll add this on to that. When you're trying to control what you can, and that keeps you busy from lamenting from the suffering that you have from not being able to control what you
mm-hmm.
can't, that you're not paying attention to what you can control, and then that also goes uncontrolled,
Exactly.
and you miss the other opportunity. Now you're suffering twice as much.
Worst of both worlds. Seneca says we suffer more often in our imagination than we do in reality.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great
Yes.
one. He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary.
Yes. Again, let the game come to you.
Yeah.
Like we have to go off that bridge when we get to it. Is there a possibility that we think this might happen? Yeah. Do we need to react to it right now and spin out and be upset? No, because it hadn't happened yet. You know what I mean?
Somebody said it's like worry is paying interest on a house you may never own.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then guess what? Like what first of all, when you're worrying about the future, right? And you're paying interest on that house that you don't own, it's false information,
Yeah.
right? Not
False
the fact
evidence
that it
appearing
hasn't
real.
happened yet,
Fear.
but what you're doing is creating expectations for what should be happening, and they're not accurate because you don't have all the information. So then when you do get the house that you own,
Mm-hmm.
you screw it up because now you're pissed off that it's totally different than what I thought about in my head. Well, yeah.
Well, and how many of us, if we're, we program ourselves, if we're thinking bad things are going to happen, we kind of lean that direction almost to,
We
the
attract
self-fulfilling prophecy. We attract it. And I'm not like a law of attraction guy, but we just like driving, you drive where you look. If you're
Yeah.
focused on bad stuff is going to happen, part of you is going to try to make sure that happens because your brain doesn't want you to be wrong. If you look at good
Yeah.
stuff happening, within reason, your brain's going to try and make that good stuff happen as well. But one of my uncles told me one time, and it stuck with me this decades ago, but he goes, "Hey, you can't tell me worrying doesn't help because most of the stuff I worry about never happens. So it must help."
I like that. That's a t-shirt right there. I
Yeah,
want to
tongue planted firmly in cheek. But
yeah.
yeah, if you
Most of the stuff I worry about doesn't happen.
yeah, if you do have those kind of low expectations, it's like you're talking about the people that wrote the 3 songs and then they want to go get some feedback on that. They're using the wrong feedback mechanism. The feedback
Yeah.
mechanism they should be looking at 3 songs in is not what does the guy across the desk feel about it? Does it make him feel good? No. These first 3 songs, do they make me feel good? Does
Mhm.
that make me want to write number 4 and number 5?
Yeah.
You follow
Yeah.
that, then eventually you can start worrying about what the other people think about it too. But at the beginning, especially, you don't need to worry about the person on the other side of the desk. You need to worry about the person in your head. Like, does this make me feel right? Does this make
Yeah.
me feel good? Does this make me want to do that more? Because then you're going to do it. And then eventually it's like, I'm going to do this whether I get paid for it or not. I started off doing it for free. I'm going to end up doing it for free to an extent because,
Yep.
copyright does last till life of the artist plus 70. So actually, I won't ever do it for free, but you know what I'm saying.
No, but I mean, like, well, then it's about the craft, right? Like, I'm going to do this, and I want to do this like really, really
Yeah.
well,
Mhm.
and I know I can do it better. Now I just wrote my 4th song. I know I can do it better. Now I wrote my 5th song. I know I can do it better.
Yeah.
When you're focused on that, and not like, does somebody of importance want to pay me money for my 3rd song?
Right.
Because I mean, it could. Because that, by the way, how jacked is that? Like, what freaking hit writer wrote 3 songs and got a number 1 hit, and then thought, well, maybe I should be a songwriter because I've made all this money from. No,
I
it
need
doesn't
something to do
have.
with all this money. Guess I'll buy guitars.
Yeah, no, it's like that doesn't happen.
No.
It's a whole lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. So, I think I'll wrap it up with this. It's a quote from Elon Musk that they talked about on this podcast as well. So we'll bring it full circle. It's very simple. Happiness equals reality minus expectations.
There we go. Contentment.
Focus on the reality. When you let the game come to you, you're dealing with reality,
Mhm.
not with worry, not with expectations, because I expected them to do this, and now the defense is doing that. Michael Jordan, let the game come to me. Well, here's the way they're coming at us. So now what are we going to do about that? Not they were supposed to do it this other way. Now what do we do? Because they're not doing it the way that we thought about it. Oh, wait, we just spent 3 seconds of this 30-second timeout talking about how they're not doing what we wanted to do, and it's got absolutely no productive effects whatsoever.
Right, exactly.
We spent 30 seconds going, here's what they're doing. What are we going to do to counteract it, right?
As
what are we
your
going to do?
dad knows well, adapt, improvise, overcome, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's the core. Yep. There it is. And that's it. Because that is life right there. Yeah. It's improvise, adapt, overcome. That's what you do. Like, and that's it, guys. So I wish you pain and suffering, when you have that moment of doubt, when you have that rejection, when that hater hurts you, when you get betrayed, this is all building your character. It makes you stronger. It does. And your job is just to stay in the game and keep getting better.
That's right.
And then lo and behold, do you think Alexandra Kay went into this whole game going, I can't wait to get divorced so I can write the album of the century that's going to blow me the hell up? Like, no. She was just trying to breathe and get through it. And dealing with the cards that are on the table right now, and then and finding a way not to climb a tower with a gun. And that for her was songwriting and being an artist. And look at what's going on now. So that record is out, by the way. Check her out. I was just so impressed with her. She's amazing. The first time I saw her, and I was looking her up on Spotify. I'm like, damn, and 2 failed record deals. Like, this girl's a force of nature for sure.
What's her name again?
Alexandra Kay, Kay.
Alexandra Kay. All right, good.
Yeah, check it out. All right, guys. Hey, we love you guys. I hope this helps, man. I really do. I think pain and suffering is it, man. I mean, that's my story. It's just nothing but one shit show after another. You know what I mean? But I'm still here doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and happy as a clam. So hey, guys. As far as the digital, understanding the difference between digital and broadcast, so you start asking the right questions, I want to alleviate. You've had enough pain and suffering on that. So go for this download. All right, go to giftfromjohnny.com, download the PDF that's going to explain why everything works on broadcast, why it's not working anymore, and why the things that you're trying to do on digital aren't working on digital. And it gives you a clear understanding of how it's consumed. And then you'll have the reality, okay? And then you'll start asking the right questions. And instead of, why doesn't this work like radio, which is, I feel, is what the whole freaking music industry is doing, they're going to be like going, okay, it doesn't work like radio. This is the reality of the way it works and how it's consumed. What can we do to make to break artists on digital, right? Right now, you're going to be one of the few artists that's thinking like that. Download it, giftfromjohnny.com. Just tell me where to send it, guys. This podcast exists because we want you to win, so keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.